It's like a shark, NATO, except with poop.
I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Amazing.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, hey everybody, welcome to the show. It is Wednesday, February 17th. So, all right, well, we've had a little bit of a news day today. Now, it appears that okay, let me get to that news in a little bit. But first, let's talk about what we're going to discuss today. So I've got a couple of stories about what's going on in Texas right now, pretty disastrous stories, including a Texas mayor that was basically telling his residents, just go ahead and die. Basically, oh, if you think that we're going to come help you, no, we're not going to come help you. You should fend for yourself. Really, really disgusting story. I'm going to talk about that. We also are going to talk about how the Texas governor is going to blame the Green New Deal and Democrats for what's going on in Texas. Wow. All right. And then we are going to talk about, of course, Donald Trump, who is hitting back at Mitch McConnell. We've got student loan debt cancellation. Yes, there's going to be some rage with that because what was said, not good. Not good. Not good at all. And then we are going to talk about, you know what? Why don't we just get that out of the way? Guess who's dead? Rush Limbaugh. I know, not a very tactful way to put it, but basically, I don't care. I don't give a shit. Rush Limbaugh is dead. I'm not exactly celebrating it, but I'm also not celebrating it. He's a terrible person, just an awful human being, delighted in the suffering of others, radicalized an entire generation on the airwaves into not just conservative thought. Conservative thought is like tax cuts and deregulation, right? All right, well, that sucks. I mean, I don't agree with tax cuts and deregulation to a certain point. Of course, there's, oh, well, I guess it depends on who it goes to. Oh, tax cuts for the middle class? For sure, I'm in favor of that. Tax breaks and incentive for certain companies for doing certain things. Okay, yeah, we can talk about that. We can hash out the details, all that stuff. Deregulation. Sometimes you can overregulate, and sometimes you can use regulations. Big companies, for example, can use regulations to crush small business out of existence, using things that are unfair, or even what the government is doing in conservative areas, using overregulation to try to shut down abortion providers. Totally fine conversation. I can have a conversation with a conservative about the limits of that, the limits of state and government power, We can talk about that. That's not the conservatism pushed by Rush Limbaugh. The so-called conservatism pushed by Rush Limbaugh is hatred of gay people, hatred of women. He coined the term feminazi. All right, for anybody who dares, a woman who dares to have bodily autonomy. Okay, that's the kind of person Rush Limbaugh was. He was a person that would laugh at gay people dying from AIDS. No, fuck Rush Limbaugh to, like the moon and back. All right. No. You know what? I don't feel bad at all. Rush Limbaugh ruined my dad. Yes, absolutely. He has ruined a lot of people through his just horrific stuff. All right. That he has talked about. He is one of the biggest purveyors of hatred. That's what he did. He did not spread the conservative message. Again, the conservative message is tax cuts, deregulation, traditional family values, the advantages of having a two-parent household versus having a single-parent household. Okay, that stuff's more like conservative, yeah, even in the social issues, but like this guy, no, he went after, again, gay people, black people, single mothers, all women, etc., etc., etc. He has attacked so many people. He has had an incredibly negative impact on this discourse, and then the world himself. The world is a better place without Rush Limbaugh. Okay, and that's really it. All right. So that's my thought. Can somebody explain the crab emojis? Oh, Onisha could. Yes, let me do that. There's a meme. It's a meme, okay, where whenever something happens like this, somebody odious dies, they do the crab dance, and so that's what it's for, crab dance. I'd love to show you the video. I think I'd get Dimked. I don't know for certain. I certainly probably would be on YouTube. So like Google crab dance. And you'll see the video that I'm talking about. So he shit on Jerry Garcia on air when he died. Yeah, absolutely. Crab rave also, yes. Or even like the pallbearer guys. That's another meme that's appropriate in this situation. All right. Anyway, so yeah, that's some of my thoughts on Rush Limbaugh, and again, how the world is better off without people. Unfortunately, his stain continues because now people have been radicalized as a result of the things that Rush Limbaugh has advocated for and has said, and so it's going to take a long time, if ever, if we can de-radicalize some of these people. My dad started listening when he started driving semi-truck. Not a lot out there for over-the-air progressives. It's true. It's true. He had a huge, huge reach. All right. Any game streams coming up? Not that I'm aware of. I've been incredibly busy outside of work, and inside of work as well. All right, let's go on. Let's talk about more odious conservatives. This time in Texas. In the wake of the deadly winter storm Uri, which has caused massive damage to the Texas power grid, leading to, of course, massive rolling blackouts and sub-zero temperatures, which, of course, it's a very dangerous situation here. A Texas mayor decided to rage against his citizens for asking him for help. So now, this is former mayor Tim Boyd. Here's what he posted in a Facebook post on Tuesday. So I don't know if you'll be able to really read that, but I'm going to show it to you anyway, and I'm going to read some of it. So, just ignore the person. Colorado, Texas, by the way, is the town. Here's what he said. Let me hurt some feelings while I have a minute. Oh, this is good. And keep that in mind, by the way, because he is going to come back later and complain about people hurting his feelings. No one owes you and your family anything, nor is it the local government's responsibility to support you during trying times like this. Sink or swim, it's your choice. The city and county, along with power providers or any other service, owes you nothing. I'm sick and tired of people looking for a damn handout. If you don't have electricity, you step up and come up with a game plan to keep your family warm and safe. If you have no water, you deal without and think outside the box to survive and supply water to your family. If you are sitting at home in the cold because you have no power and are sitting there waiting for someone to come rescue you because you're lazy, is direct result of your raising. Only the strong will survive and the weak will perish. Perish spelled wrong. Yeah, I know. Numerous spelling errors, but okay. Folks, God has given us the tools to support ourselves in times like this. This is sadly a product of socialist government, where they feed people to believe that the few will work and others will become dependent for handouts. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me just stop right there. All right. This is the product of the socialist government of what? Texas? Texas? I'm sorry. This is in Texas. Also, up until January 20th, the government was run by the federal government. It's been run by Donald Trump, Republicans. Come on, dude. What's going on here? All right. Anyway, there's more to this screed than I want to read. Am I sorry that you have been dealing with electricity and water? Yes, but I'll be damned if I'm going to provide for anyone that is capable of doing it themselves. We have lost sight of those in need and those that take advantage of the system and mash them into one group. Bottom line, quit crying and looking for a handout. Get off your ass and take care of your family. Bottom line, don't a part of the problem, be a part of the solution. Okay, so this is literally a former mayor of Colorado, Texas. Holy crap. So, all right. The guy's insane. Oh, you want electricity and clean water? Get it for yourself. You realize that, like, consumers, because that's where we are, consumers pay to get water and electricity. And when service is interrupted, they expect that to be fixed and service to be restored in exchange for paying them to do the service. You pay them. I mean, come on. Now, look, I happen to believe that, heat, water, and power and shelter are human rights. I think that everybody should have this. I think in this world, in this time period, where, human beings are the wealthiest they've ever been, and all these wonderful technological advances, that there's no reason that anybody in this world shouldn't be without the basic things for survival, and that's what that is. Food is necessary for survival. In a lot of cases, energy in order to keep food warm, or I'm sorry, not warm, but keep food cold, and then be able to warm and cook that food. All that stuff is kind of the baseline for human survival. All right. So yes, I believe that shelter and heat and water, they are human rights, and we should all have them. Okay. And so again, we have access to so many different ways of creating energy. We have an abundance of energy, in fact. But as you can see in Texas, well, there were certain impediments to that. Even though we were able to generate lots of different energy through lots of different ways, it means this storm caused some problems, right? As they do. Now, that said, on energy, I also believe in the decommodification of energy. I don't know if I mentioned that. Right. So, but this man who was an absolute psycho thinks, no. Even if you've paid for it, first through your taxes and infrastructure, right? And then as a service to a private corporation, you are therefore not entitled to have electricity, even though you've done all that. Or you're also not entitled to have the government come in and fix that infrastructure and get that working again so that you're able to live and survive. Okay? Well, then why have government at all if they're not able to do these basic things? So, I mean, of course, that these Republicans, these conservatives don't believe in government. And their whole point is, we don't want government. We believe that only he said it before, the strong will survive and the weak will perish. And that's really it. And so now the guy's a sociopath, obviously, and he got raked over the coals. And again, he had resigned from his post as mayor, and then ended up deleting this off of Facebook. But even in doing so, he doubled down. Here's what he said in a second post. Mr. Boyd said he won't deny for any minute or 1 minute anything that he had said in the previous post, but then complained about mean comments. Mean comments. My wife received mean comments and harassment and actually lost her job. He also blamed people for taking him out of context, saying that, quote, I would never want to hurt the elderly or anyone that is in true need of help. I was just making the statement that those folks that are too lazy to get up and fend themselves should not be dealt a handout. Now, again, I believe that all these things are human rights, that we should all have this as a baseline to human survival. Okay, and there's no reason that we can't do this. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people that seem to disagree with that position. Now, Mr. Boyd also said that he made the comments as a private citizen, not that it matters, because guess what? Yeah, you have free speech. You're able to say whatever you want, but you are not protected from the consequences. Turns out, yeah. Now, those consequences, of course, ended up, at least according to him, saying that his wife was fired from her job due to her defending his statement, and that his family was subject to undeserved harassment and even death threats. Well, look, literally, you just told people in their community that they deserve to die if they were, quote unquote, too lazy to do that. And look, one person, actually more than one person has died. But let me give you an example. And this didn't happen in this community, but it has been happening throughout Texas. One woman and her 8-year-old daughter in Houston, they did kind of what he said. They thought out of the box, and they tried heating their home with their car. Now, unfortunately, those two people died as a result of carbon monoxide poisoning. So, I mean, in the last few days, Houston actually had 300 cases of carbon monoxide poisoning that was reported in Harris County alone. So people are trying to heat their homes in any way possible, but they're doing so in dangerous ways. And so don't, shut all the doors and bring your car in and use that to heat your home. Don't heat your home or, sleep in the car or anything like that. Don't do that. Okay, don't do that. That is dangerous. That is deadly. Okay, so, but hey, you ask this guy, the weak shall perish, right? Guess that family should have been a little stronger, right? That's kind of what you're saying. And no, I don't think at all that I'm taking you out of context. I read exactly what you said. No, again, what we need is the kind of quote-unquote socialist government response in order to help people get back on their feet and not die. Now, look, there's been a lot of great people in Texas that have that have heat and they have things like that. And they have helped out their neighbor, and that's wonderful. And I love to see that, right? But here's the thing. Maybe we should have, I don't know, a coordinated response to be able to help people en masse. And that's what governments are supposed to do. That's literally why we create governments. But Texas, the politicians in Texas, for example, such as this guy, well, they set themselves up for something like this to happen by setting up and operating their own power grid. Now you might think, okay, look, what does that matter? This would be a good thing, right? I mean, Texas, we're being self-sufficient, so we can better deliver power locally, right? Using this privatized model that has competition and doesn't have to adhere to onerous federal government regulations. And that turned out to be not good for them. And as a result, at least 10 people have died as a result of the winter storms in this state. And it's not over either. It's not over. Another winter storm is expected to hit the region today. So, it's a sad situation. It's a dangerous situation. And I just want to send my solidarity to the people of Texas who are affected by this. Please stay safe, stay warm, do the best that you can. And, you guys you'll pull through this. The rest of the country is with you, even if your politicians aren't. All right. Yes, Texas does have its own power grid. I just mentioned that. All right, moving on. Texas Republican politicians are catching a lot of heat for their response following the failure of the Texas power grid after the winter storm. Now, the storm, of course, knocked out power for about 4 million people, residents during sub-zero temperatures. It's a very dangerous combination, especially for elderly residents, children, and anybody else. Now, the Texas power grid happens to be uniquely vulnerable to such interruptions, as it's completely separate from the national power grid, 100% privatized, and had not been properly weatherized before the storm had happened. Now, according to Texas Governor Greg Abbott, however, it's not any of those factors. No, it's windmills. Take a look.
Sean, this shows how the Green New Deal would be a deadly deal for the United States of America. Texas is blessed with multiple sources of energy, such as natural gas and oil and nuclear, as well as solar and wind. But you saw from what Trace said, and that is our wind and our solar got shut down, and they were collectively more than 10% of our power grid. And that thrust Texas into a situation where it was lacking power in a statewide basis, that was power that was spread out by that ERCOT organization that you were talking about. As a result, it just shows that fossil fuel is necessary for the state of Texas as well as other states to make sure that we will be able to heat our homes in the wintertime and cool our homes in the summertime.
So, okay, wait. So you hear that? Apparently it's the whole fault of the Green New Deal, which hasn't been implemented. It's the fault of the windmills, which only make about 10% of Texas's energy mix. And so that means since those solar panels and windmills shut down, those wind turbines iced over and wouldn't work, that somehow is the fault of the Texas power grid failing, even though 90% of the Texas power grid is actually supplied by thermal energy sources or fossil fuels. Right. Okay. Sure. Now, look, if that argument doesn't make sense to you, good, because it's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Here's what actually happened. Okay. So now, while some wind generators, as I mentioned before, did go offline due to being iced over, the state's largest grid, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, said the shortages were driven by a failure not of renewable sources, but of traditional thermal sources, coal, nuclear, and especially natural gas. Energy experts said that gas lines supplying gas-fired plants may have frozen, or that supplies to the plants may have been limited as gas was prioritized for homes that rely on gas for their heat. And so, okay, so it actually is kind of a failure, not of traditional energy sources in the, in the general sense, but a lack of preparedness for such events as this storm. Now, look, to show you an example, I live in Michigan. It gets cold here. There's winter, there's ice, there's snowstorms. So, okay, but we also have wind turbines that operate during the winter. In fact, our wind turbines work all year round without a problem. Now, again, we also have solar energy, and we also have traditional energy sources, thermal energy sources. And it's not just us. Guess who also uses wind turbines? Antarctica. So there are wind turbines in cold places that work just fine. So now, what was the difference then between those places and Texas? Well, according to the Washington Post, the difference was a financial structure for power generation that offered no incentives to power plant operators to winterize. So not only did the, like the alternative energies, such as, the wind turbines, they were not winterized. And so they froze over, they seized up, they stopped generating power, but also the natural gas plants also were not winterized. And so they were not able to generate the power that they needed or that people needed. And so that's what happened. Now, the Washington Post continues that saying that in the name of deregulation and free markets, Texas has created an electric grid that put an emphasis on cheap prices over reliable service. Now, that's fine when there's not, I guess that's fine when there's not like an emergency event. But in an emergency, you kind of want reliable service. Now, as a result, too, when stuff like this happens in a market-driven environment such as Texas, you end up losing the only advantage, which is the cheap prices. In fact, let me go to Bloomberg for that. Quote, Texas is home to the most competitive electricity market in America. Homeowners and businesses turn power providers like their credit cards. In the face of such cutthroat competition, retail power providers in the region have grown accustomed to offering new customers incredibly low rates, incentives, and at least in unusual plans that allow customers to pay wholesale power prices as opposed to fixed ones. So now, I can see where there are advantages in that. Sure. Hey, who doesn't want to pay cheap energy prices? But everything tends to come with a cost. Now, one example that operates in that business model in Texas is named Griddy. You think with a name like that, right, it would be better than it is. But apparently, Griddy having some problems. They are asking customers to actually switch companies to something else. In fact, according to that article, the ruthless nature of the business has caught power traders speculating over which firms may have been caught short this week in the most dramatic run-up in spot power prices that they've ever seen. Now, remember, they allow these, the stock traders to do speculative trades on energy. And so as a result, Griddy has had to tell all of its 29,000 customers that they should switch to another provider as spot electricity prices soared as high to $9,000 a megawatt hour. Normally, compared to pre-storm prices of less than $50 per megawatt hour, which is what normally happens. Okay. Now, Griddy's customers are fully exposed to the real-time swings in wholesale power markets, so those who don't leave soon will face extraordinarily high electric bills. So, now here's what the company said about that. Quote, we made the unprecedented decision to tell our customers, whom we worked really hard to get, they're better off in the near term with another provider, said Michael Falquist, chief executive of Griddy. We want what's right by our consumers, so we're encouraging them to leave We believe that transparency and that honesty will bring them back once prices return to normal. So, yeah, look, I don't know what Abbott is talking about. He's clearly lying. Texas gets the majority of its energy from oil and gas already, 90%, but also has a completely deregulated free market system. So I don't understand how they can sit there and blame wind turbines and the Green New Deal, green energy, for any of what happened. It's just simply BS. Had they, again, it's almost as if this entire situation, this, or this everybody involved failed. And I mean, the people in power, the government of Texas politicians have failed. And now they're just making things up to, pass the buck. I mean, the state has made some very bad choices. Had they actually forced their, companies to winterize their stuff, just out of caution, because, hey, look, sometimes stuff like this happens. If they had done that, a lot of the interruptions and price spikes could have been possibly avoided. Now, of course, that would have reduced their profits, but, and plus it's Texas. So, I mean, obviously they can never have a freak snowstorm, right? Right? Oh, yeah. Right. And now, unfortunately, you have the people in Texas paying for the politicians' stupid mistakes. It really seems to be more of a failure of deregulation and free markets. It turns out the government is kind of necessary in emergencies. You do need to have some rules to protect consumers. I know it's a strange thought. The idea of pooling resources to be able to help each other in times of strife. It's not something, it's not really a new concept, but it's as old as time. And so, I don't know, maybe we should do that. You should try that. And it turns out that government is a pretty effective vehicle in making sure that happens. Yeah. Ferengi government in Texas. Rule of acquisition number 34. I think that's like, war is good for business, but anyway. All right, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take a quick break. We're gonna come back. We got Donald Trump going after Mitch McConnell. That's fun. And then we are going to talk about Biden and student loan debt. So that's interesting. And then a single mother gets arrested for working. Yeah. So there's that. All right, so stay right here. We'll be back in a couple minutes. Around the Nation.
Give me a break.
I will eat your ass.
I like my meat tight. Tighten up my meat.
Welcome back. Around the Nation right here. Wonderful Nation. Well to be with you. All right, so let's go on to the next segment here. Actually, I've got a couple of super chats here first. Let's see. Kevin Stern says, thoughts and prayers for Rush. Here's something that actually matters for you. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Very kind donation. Adrian Benefield says, don't feel bad for the corpse. Feel bad for the mortician. Good point. All right, anyway. Let's go here. Trashy Plays, thank you for the 4 months at tier 1. Thank you so much. Much appreciated, man. That's awesome. Let's move on. Following the second failed impeachment attempt, Donald Trump has decided to lash out at Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. So now Trump has been deprived of his Twitter account, and so he had to release a statement attacking his former colleague. Here's what he said. The Republican Party can never again be respected or strong with political leaders like Senator Mitch McConnell at its helm. Mitch McConnell's dedication to business as usual, status quo policies, together with his lack of political insight, wisdom, skill, and personality, has rapidly driven him from majority leader to minority leader, and it's going to get worse. The Democrats and Chuck Schumer play McConnell like a fiddle. They've never had it so good, and they want to keep it that way. We know our America First agenda is a winner, not McConnell's Beltway First agenda or Biden's America Last. Let's hold on there, all right, for a minute. Okay, look, if this is such a winner, how come you lost? I think it's a fairly straightforward, simple question. If it's such a winner, how come you lost? I know, the voter fraud, so much fraud. You know what we had? We had
dumps, big, massive dumps.
So many dumps, so many very, very big dumps, very large, the largest dumps. Okay, so anyway, you know he didn't write it. You know he was screaming some dumb stuff, and they edited and wrote it. Very, very likely, actually, yes. This does sound a lot like Jason Miller, but nonetheless, I'm pretty sure Donald Trump not happy with Mitch McConnell. In fact, there's a couple of things in here that were definitely things that Trump probably said. First, he's going to go on to brag about, of course, his election results. He said, in 2020, I received the most votes of any sitting president in history, almost 75 million. Every incumbent House Republican won for the first time in decades, and we flipped 15 seats, almost canceling Nancy Pelosi her jab. Republicans won majorities in, okay, whatever. Over the last 2 election cycles, I single-handedly saved at least 12 Senate seats. Wait, single-handedly. Well, more than 8 in the 2020 cycle alone, and then came the Georgia disaster, where we should have won both U.S. Senate seats, but McConnell matched the Democrat offer of 2,000 stimulus checks with $600. Okay, so look, there's some truth in that. But he says, how does that work? It became the Democrats' principal advertisement. Definitely not something that he wrote. And a big winner for them, it was, I single-handedly saved 12 Senate seats. I did all the work. Me. Like, this was all my doing. It didn't have anything to do with anything else. No, it was me. I single-handedly won everything. The balls on this guy. You can almost respect how good he is at, just bullshitting. All right. So now, here's the thing. This election was a referendum on, mainly on coronavirus. Let's be honest with you. I don't think that, had coronavirus, I think if had it been handled or just didn't happen at all, Donald Trump might still be president. I'm being completely honest with you. I don't think that Joe Biden really had a compelling platform, and certainly didn't have the kind of charisma that Trump has. And again, being completely real. That said, his actions on the coronavirus dealing with this has had such devastating consequences. Again, he could even run the illusion, could have ran on on the illusion of a good economy had all of this stuff not happened. And so, yeah, I think that, and I'll go back, I've got videos saying it before, that, Donald Trump was heading towards re-election if Joe Biden were to be his opponent. And it turned out, again, to be a referendum on coronavirus. And so that's very, very important. Trump did a terrible job. Almost 500,000 people have died in this country as a result of the coronavirus. And so Biden ended up getting about 7 million more votes than Trump. Now, you want to talk about how many votes you got, but you still came in second, which means Biden also got a record number of votes. So, okay. Now, again, in Georgia, he actually brought up a good point. Yes, Democrats did run on the $2,000 checks in the Georgia race. They absolutely did. If you want to go back and say, no, it was the $1,400 plus the $600 that Trump already gave. No, they ran on $2,000 checks. Simple as that. Even though if they want to do the revisionist history, we've got receipts. So, but anyway, those checks, $2,000 checks, is extremely popular. That's why Trump ran on it. Because he knows, he understands, right? And Donald Trump understands that, like, doing popular things might help you in elections. Now, Mitch McConnell is the Grim Reaper, okay? And that is a name that he has given himself. And so, look, him not wanting those $2,000 checks, again, we've seen, and I've talked about the plan, the coronavirus stimulus package that the Republicans put out. It was a skinny bill that didn't have any checks. That had nothing in it. Nothing for you, everything for corporations. And so understand, like, Mitch McConnell literally cannot feel joy unless he murders a poor person. And so that's Mitch McConnell for you, right? But anyway, Trump's going to go on about Georgia. He said, many Republicans in Georgia voted Democrat or just didn't vote because of their anguish at the inept governor, Brian Kemp, Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, Brad Raffensperger, who he called trying to look for find me some additional votes. I need them. I need 11,780 votes to win the election. That's why he's calling out Brad Raffensperger. You know it. And Brian Kemp. That's exactly why he's doing that. But also he blames the Republican Party, which he says for, quote, not doing its job on election integrity during the 2020 presidential race. Of course, he's got to talk about the big lie. Of course. It's all he has. There's more. It was a complete election disaster in Georgia and certain other swing states. Oh, you mean like Pennsylvania, Michigan, those states? Yeah. McConnell did nothing and will never do what needs to be done in order to secure a fair and just electoral system in the future. He doesn't have what it takes, never did, and never will. Look, McConnell didn't do anything because there wasn't anything to do. There wasn't widespread voter fraud. There just wasn't. Was there instances of voter fraud? Yeah, I've talked about those. There are instances where you had Republicans voting twice for Trump. That definitely happened. That is voter fraud. But there's never been enough voter fraud in order to really swing these elections. A smattering here and there, which is a very, very small amount of the total amount of votes that were cast. And so I'm sorry, but it's just not a thing. It's not real. No widespread voter fraud. In fact, every legitimate investigation, every recount has confirmed that the election went to Joe Biden, fair and square. So now, in the next part, he goes after McConnell. He goes after him hard. Here's what he said, quote, and you know this is from him. My only regret is that McConnell begged for my strong support and endorsement before the great people of Kentucky in the 2020 election, and I gave it to him. He is destroying the Republican side of the Senate, and in doing so, seriously hurting our economy, hurting our country. Mitch is a dour, sullen, and unsmiling political hack, and if Republican senators are going to stay with him, they will not win again. Oh, that's awesome. You know that last part. That's Trump. That's Trump. All right, so look, there's something like Republican versus Republican crime. I love it. I do. Here's the thing. So, Mitch McConnell hasn't responded to this. It hasn't responded yet, but it's clear. This is not going to be the first. This is not the first. And it won't be the last time that they trade barbs with each other. Remember, Donald Trump did voted not to convict Trump, but then came out against him anyway, and people who support him, and actually vowed to run primaries against Trump-supported, candidates. And so that's very serious, right? The people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who are Trump allied. And so that's the civil war that's coming up. Okay, that is happening. And so now the reason that this is happening is because Trump has ripped the mask off the Republican Party. And Mitch, well, he's not happy about this. He's exposed the Republican Party for what it actually is. That undercuts the actions of Mitch McConnell for decades to basically hide the true nature of the party as a reactionary movement and to legitimize the Republican Party as the party of ideas. They're not. They're not a party of ideas. Their ideas are tax cuts and deregulation, and that's really it. Funnel more money to rich people. And what they did in order to get that is that they would use racist dog whistles, as I mentioned before, in order to, get the people to try to cut welfare programs in order to funnel that money to massive that amount of money to donors in the form of tax cuts, massive tax cuts for the rich, not just for the sake of cutting into poor people, but to help their donors. And that's really what it is. Now, when Trump, got onto the scene, he ripped the mask off. He said, no, we're going to be open about it. We're racist and we're proud. That's it. And that's it. We're sexist and proud. And we're just going to be incredibly reactionary to whatever Democrats do because we hate them. And that's it. That's the Republican worldview, and it's been fully exposed. And that sucks for Mitch McConnell because most of the country is not into that. Even a lot of Republicans are not into that. But there's a lot of the base that is. And look, I'm not saying that every Trump supporter is racist, or misogynistic, but I am saying that to those people, to a lot of them, those aren't deal breakers. And that does say a lot. Okay. So now Mitch McConnell, he actually is a smart politician. He's good at his job. If his job means, staying in power, he's really, really good at staying in power. And so he plays the long game. He plays it very, very well, which is why he's been able to stay in power for decades and was able to personally enrich himself along the way, despite people in Kentucky hating his guts. But now, as a result of Trump, he's losing control because they found their champion in Trump, who was basically gone full mask off. And so now the thing about this, there's two ways to look at it. The one, it's in a good way. Mitch has to deal with the monster that they created. These Republicans have to deal with the monstrous, like Frankenstein that they've created in Trump and in the MAGA base. But there's a bad side of that, is that we also have to deal with that and whatever damage they cause the country if they ever get back into power. So, good and bad. All right. Let's go to Biden. President Joe Biden is not interested in canceling student loan debt. In fact, here he is telling a student at a recent CNN town hall that he will be doing nothing about canceling student debt. Take a look.
Loans are crushing my family, friends, and fellow Americans.
Me too.
The American dream
Think
is
I'm
to
kidding.
succeed, but how can we fulfill that dream when debt is many people's only option for a degree? We need student loan forgiveness beyond the potential $10,000 your administration has proposed. We need at least a $50,000 minimum. What will you do to make that happen?
I will not make that happen. It depends on whether or not you go to a private university or a public university. It depends on the idea that I say to a community, I'm going to forgive the debt, the billions of dollars of debt for people who have gone to Harvard and Yale and Penn and schools, my children. I went to a great school. I went to a state school. But is that going to be forgiven rather than use that money to provide for early education for young children who come from disadvantaged circumstances?
All right. So now he talks about not having the authority, right? So that's what he said. I'm not going to do it. I don't have the authority to do it. Okay, but your plan is to cancel $10,000 student loan debt, right? Well, what gives you the authority to do that and not $50,000? So, I mean, that's the obvious question. The other thing, though, is that when you look into it, you realize that the whole "I don't have the authority" is actually a bit of a lie. He absolutely does have the authority to do so. In fact, under the Higher Education Act of 1965, the Secretary of Education, which is part of the executive branch, has the authority to cancel student loans. Now, that authority actually comes from a statute that was codified into law in 1965, known as compromise and settlement. So basically, what the Secretary of Education can do is just to say, we're just going to forgive the debt. We're not going to collect on it. That's it. We're just not going to do it. Forgiven, right? And at the end of the day, if that happens, the 44 million people, majority, of them black, will no longer have to deal with crippling student loan debt. Again, a lot of black families have taken out this debt in order to go to these schools. And so now that said, are there obstacles in the way of this? Sure. Let me go through them. The scale of debt forgiveness, for example, could require sign-off by the Attorney General of the United States. Again, that doesn't involve dealing with the Republicans. They could do that. If the debt is considered revenue for the federal government, an Office of Management and Budget would simply have to approve a large long-term loss. Well, there's Neera Tanden. She could sign off on that. And finally, Biden would also have to make sure that the debt forgiveness wasn't taxed as income. But all of that doesn't involve making deals with Republicans, and it's 100% doable. So Biden has the authority to be able to make that stuff happen if he wants to. Now, the only answer as to why he's not doing this and lying about it is simply because he doesn't want to. I mean, that's pretty simple. He can do it. He says, oh, no, I can't, because he doesn't want to do it. I mean, again, doesn't want to cancel $50,000 of student loan debt, doesn't want to cancel all of it. $10,000. We'll be fine with $10,000. But that's unfortunately next to nothing. It's literally interest on some of the higher loans held by borrowers. Okay. And look, because of Joe Biden, you cannot discharge the debt through bankruptcy. And so that's a big problem, okay? They've got to hold the debt for the rest of their lives at, by the way, high interest rates as well. Now, Biden, this has happened while Biden is actually facing a lot of pressure from members of the Democratic Party. And so, look, you've got two people. Again, you've got Bernie Sanders that ran on just canceling all the debt, numerous progressives. But then you have the more, centrist wing of the party, you've got Chuck Schumer getting together with Elizabeth Warren to say, well, why don't you cancel $50,000? That would help a significant amount of people. Again, I'm still in favor of canceling all of it. And the reasons, for me personally, a lot of our generation was kind of sold a lie. I think that we were lied to by recruiters, lied to by colleges, lied to by life coaches and counselors about, oh yeah, no, you go to school, you take out all this debt, but don't worry, you're going to get a good job. You're going to get a great job. And when you're 18 years old and you just got out of school and you've been told all this for, going through school, oh, college. It's the best way to go and get an education and to get a good job. Well, then you do it. And then that doesn't always work out the way that it's supposed to. And these people are often saddled with a lot of debt, and it's a lot more expensive than it used to be. Again, it used to be where you could be able to afford a college tuition from working a minimum wage job. So you could literally work your way through school. And it's because, of course, a lot of these colleges were funded by the states to allow you to have such low tuition. And sometimes we even had states that have fully paid for tuition, allowing people to go to school for free. But then again, decades of defunding those programs, now we're in a situation where college tuition is up by 1,000% from what it was back in the 1960s. And so, not good. This is a very bad situation. So now Schumer and Warren, I'll have to admit, they're not our favorite people. Some people very, very unhappy with Elizabeth Warren. Nonetheless, here's Schumer on Twitter saying Presidents Obama and Trump used executive authority to cancel student debt. The Biden administration has said that they're reviewing options for canceling up to $50,000. Senator Warren and I are confident that they'll agree with Obama and Trump standards and experts who say the admin has the authority to deliver relief. Now, I see what he's doing here. Again, for I think a lot of you watching are like, oh, Obama, But there's a huge section of people, liberals, who love Obama. And so I see why he's making this comparison like, oh, hey, look, Obama and Trump, they did it. Why can't they had the authority? Why can't you? Yeah. So it's good messaging to libs who, absolutely love Obama to try to push Biden. I don't think, however, that's going to be effective. Because again, Biden helped put students into this situation in the first place. Again, he didn't fight back when the government was defunding colleges, didn't push for canceling student debt before, and also had written the bill that prevented debt discharge through bankruptcy. And now he's lying about his authority. It really kind of shows you that he's not serious about this. All right. His administration is also defending Betsy DeVos in a lawsuit where she was found in contempt of court by collecting payments from students who were literally defrauded by for-profit colleges. And again, a lot of this is because, look, we know who Joe Biden is. He's the senator from MBNA. He's the senator for the banks and these lenders and these institutions. He always has been on their side. Navient, Nelnet, all these companies that are contracted by the government to collect on student loans, and of course they make money off of that, they all make massive political donations to whoever's in charge to ensure that they continue to get paid for their role in collecting these student loan debts. And Biden is just still part of that system, and he's always going to be part of that system. Biden was not lying when he said, and he didn't tell us this. This is what he told his donors. Nothing would fundamentally change. Well, we see who he, what promises he lives up to and to whom. And it's not us. All right. You know what? Unfortunately, that's all the time I got. Don't worry, I'll get to this story, the single mom story, because it's enraging. And you know what? We've already had enough enraging news today. Leave it off on a good note. Rush Limbaugh is dead. And that's about it. That's good news. All right. One more here. This is a super chat from Michael Norris. This greeting from Australia. Upon hearing the news of Rush, my dog and I are having McDonald's breakfast. I know that there's a trend to rehab people when they've died, but he's like a drug dealer being called a community pillar. 100%. Very, very true. Dr. Zippy McScoots here with a very kind $10 says, 49, I've had a master's degree in physics. It took me 12 years to pay off my student loans. It's 45 when I finally paid them off. Hey, Zippy. That's awesome, though. I'm glad that you no longer have that debt. I still have to work through mine and make some massive payments to it as well. Luckily, I did graduate from community college, so it's still over like $40,000, which is crazy when you think about it for community college. But all right, that said, thank you all for going around the nation today. Much appreciations to you. Thank you, Trashy Play, for the 100 biddies. Much appreciated. Thank you so much to those of you on Twitch and on YouTube and on Facebook as well. Please like and share the stream, like and share the videos. Much appreciation. And we will see you all tomorrow. Thank you all. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See you all later.
Wet ass keywords.
Mike has.
I like my meat tight. Tighten up my meat.
Amazing.
Please clap. They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.